Hi there, it's time to get up to scratch. Today, we're going to look at the control blocks, the light orange blocks over here. These blocks don't make the sprite do anything specific, but they do control how the other blocks are run. You can delay blocks from running, repeat them, and use them to make decisions of which blocks are run. You can also make clones of sprites and give them code to run. The control blocks range from very simple to very complex, so we'll start with the simple ones and move on from there. You may want to watch only part of this video at a time so that you can practice what you've learned. Let's begin. As usual, I will use an event block to help show how these work. So the most basic control block is the wait block. This allows you to have the sprite wait for something else to happen. Perhaps it's another sprite that is doing something while we're waiting. So I'm going to add another sprite here. Let's just choose one that works well with the cat. I like to have things facing each other, but I think that bat is going to be the best option right now. And I'm just going to set these two sprites up so that they are facing each other. Now, I'm going to have the bat, when the flag is clicked, use one of the looks blocks and say hello for 2 seconds. Now, I want the cat to respond to this. So I can't have the cat speak at the same time, otherwise they'll speak simultaneously and that won't really make sense. So I'm going to have the cat wait for 2 seconds, and then I'm going to have the cat say hello back. So let's see how that works. The wait block is super helpful, especially when you don't want your sprite doing anything for a few seconds. So it's one of the most basic ones. It just runs one at a time in order. The next two blocks that are important are the repeat block and the forever block. So the repeat block will allow you to repeat something multiple times. I'm just going to get rid of the bat right now because we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to use the motion blocks to show how this cat can move. So I'm going to have him or her, I guess, move 50 steps. And then I'm going to have the cat rotate 90 degrees. And I'm going to have it repeat 4 times. Take a guess at what this might actually make the cat do. And let's have a look. Actually, before I start, let's have the cat, let's have them go up here. I think that's what I want. So when I press the start button, and that went super, super fast. What if I use the wait block? And we see that it's kind of going in a square motion. Now, one of the neat things that we need to be doing when we're making programs is adjusting our numbers and such. So if I adjust it a little bit more, you can see how that is working. So it is going in a square kind of motion. Now, the forever block, that is quite useful when you're trying to check for something, or when you are trying to make the cat or the sprite go somewhere. So again, let's set our program up and put our x at 0 and our y at 0 when it starts. And we're going to have the go to the mouse pointer. So if I stop the program, I start it, and now you'll see as I move the mouse pointer, it is constantly updating it forever and ever and ever. That forever loop can be very useful in a lot of different things, and I spoke about that in some of the other videos. The next set of control blocks that we will look at are these if or wait until or repeat until blocks. And now each of these has one of these diamond shaped holes in it. Now, we haven't looked at too many of these. I don't think we've looked at any yet. In the next video, in sensing, you'll notice some there. And in the operators, there are a lot of those there. Now, essentially, I'm not going to explain how those blocks work just yet in this video, but in these, it is basically giving you a true or a false. So in coding and computational thinking, we call that a Boolean operator. So it is either true or it is false. If something is true inside this block, the code inside will run. And I will use examples of that when we are using the operators. In the if-then block, if that condition isn't true when the code gets to there, or when the program reaches this bit of code, it will just skip that, so nothing will happen. It is helpful if you want your program to be constantly checking, is to nest one forever loop inside of the, or nest the if-then block inside the forever loop. So it is constantly checking for this condition to be met, then that code will run. If you don't put it inside the forever block, it will only check once. Another option is to have the program check if this condition here is true, then it will run this. If that is not true, then it will run this one. Now you can check multiple conditions by nesting these inside of each other. And so if the first condition is true, it does this. Then if this condition is true, it does that. If this condition is true, it does that. And then else it does that. Now this can be quite complicated if you've got some various things. So maybe it's a score and you want to say, oh, you got this level, or you got that level, or you got that level. So it's really important to understand how that works when you set that up. And you have to have a really good understanding also of these operator blocks. The sensing blocks are a little bit simpler. You could have, if the mouse is down, then something happens. The wait until block is another interesting block. It waits until this condition is true. So either one of the sensing blocks or the operator blocks. You wouldn't use this on its own if there was one sprite and I put wait until this equals this or something. It would be in reaction to something. So maybe it's waiting until a score reaches a certain point, and then when the score reaches a certain point, something happens. Or maybe it's a level and a different thing happens. Or maybe it's a character says something, or a character moves or touches something, or maybe somebody presses a mouse. So then it kind of allows the program to wait not for a specific amount of time, but for a specific event to happen that won't necessarily be one of the event blocks. The other is kind of like the opposite, is that it repeats until something is true. So maybe it's again waiting until maybe the enemies keep coming out and they keep on making clones of each other until a certain score is made in the game. You'll be using these with variables and the operators. So they're just another way to kind of control the flow. Now, when we talk about the operators, there is a very simple way to make things when a condition is false that it does this. But we'll save that until we get to the operators, because that can also be a very tricky one to think about. A really helpful part of these control blocks is this stop all. So in theory, you could have if the condition is met, and you could be constantly checking that for forever. And then if that's met, everything stops. You could stop all of the codes, or you could just stop this script, or you could stop all the scripts and the sprite. Now that could be really helpful to prevent your program from kind of going into an infinite loop. The last set of blocks in the control section are the clone blocks. So there's 3 here that it's probably better to talk about them all as a group. So when the sprite is clicked, what I could do is let's do repeat 10 times and create a clone of myself. Wait 1 second, and then so it'll create a clone, wait a second, create a clone, wait a second, 10 times. Now, what we're going to have that clone do is maybe go to a random position, and then glide for let's say glide 3 seconds to a random position. And actually, let's have them do that. Let's make this interesting and have them repeat that 3 times. So it's going to get really messy in there. So we've got, when this is clicked, it's going to start making clones, and every time a clone is made, it's going to be in a random spot, going to a random position. So see how now they're all making, there's 4, and they'll start disappearing. Probably, I'm guessing, after about 9 seconds. So see, now they start disappearing. So that is how you use clones. Now clones are a great thing to be using when you're making games. It allows you to make a lot of the same characters over and over and over and over. That's all of the control blocks. There aren't many, but they can be very powerful in making your programs very precise. Hopefully, you've already watched the videos on motion, looks, and sound blocks and have lots of ideas as to how you can use these control blocks to enhance your Scratch programs. Next up, you should watch the sensing blocks video, followed by the operators and variables videos. That's all for now. Happy programming! Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching!